Thanks for inviting me, and I'm going to kind of just talk off the cuff. I really want to take more questions than I do in terms of providing information, because I think most of you know the information. But let me just say to you, last year when I stood up before the Board of County Commissioners at our strategic planning conference, I made a comment, and I said this is going to be the toughest budget I've ever done. That was last year. I was wrong. This is going to be the toughest budget that I've ever done. Let's put it in context. Last 2 years, what have we said? We've said two tough budgets. 2 years ago, the budget was tough because of economic conditions. And the economic conditions that were confronting us at that time was the fact that we had rising fuel costs. Remember, gas hovering at $3 a gallon, and all of the effects that that had on the economy. The cost of transportation increased, so therefore supplies and goods and food and all those kind of things were also escalating at the same time that gas prices were escalating. So we said it's a tough year. We're really going to have to be diligent in how we go forward. And then last year, we began to see the effects of the recession kicking in, sales taxes going down, growth revenue stabilizing, and the impact that had with an overall requirement to reduce our budget by about $70 million overall last year. And you might recall that even the library, you think back to your budget was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $35 million last year. You got, I think, a 10.3% reduction in library funding last year down to the level of about $31 million in this year's budget. That's good news. It's going to be worse this year. I'm not ready. I don't have any new targets yet. Hope to have that finalized sometime this week so that I can share that with Charles the early part of next week. What's contributing to this decline? This is the first time. I've been with Mecklenburg County for 18 years. This is the first time that I can remember that we have not had growth in our tax base. We've got an assessed valuation of property, commercial real estate property, in this community of roughly $100 billion of assessed value. I think when I came here 18 years ago, that assessed value was somewhere in the neighborhood, I want to say 30 billion. It might have been less than that, but that gives you some kind of idea of the growth that we had. When you saw this construction occurring in this community, whether it was residential or commercial, we could rely upon that as real estate property that would get into our values, and starting out of the gate, we would have 25 to 30 and $40 million of new revenue that we could rely upon to help us start our budget, to either pay for increases in debt service that we've encountered, to pay for things like schools and jails and libraries and greenways and the rest of the stuff. This year, we're not going to have that growth. And while we're not having that growth in the tax base, simultaneously, we're having a reduction in people like myself and you. I'm driving a car that's a 2001, got 216,000 miles on it. Car runs great. It's a Toyota, by the way. It hadn't been recalled, 2001, 216,000 miles on it. Yeah, I'm not buying a car. I don't need to buy a car. My car runs great. But people would like for me to go out and buy. I would like to go out and buy a car, or I'd like for you to go out and buy a car, because it helps us on the tax revenue. Our sales tax revenue declined current fiscal year by about 17%. In this, what we budgeted this year, what we're seeing coming in, even though we were very conservative, is sales tax revenue that's probably not going to meet the budgeted target that we had this year. And that is why we've been talking to Charles and them about, we put out this scenario about some 5% reductions for this current fiscal year, and then it related to, it ended up being a story that was posted in the paper about the closing of libraries. That's what's contributing to it. Taxes are stable, revenue's going down. Here's another issue that you need to be concerned with, that I'm concerned with. Unemployment rate. Unemployment rate in Mecklenburg County is about 11.5%, somewhere in the middle there, maybe 11.2. It's not projected the unemployment rate is going to go down to 9.5%, 23 months, maybe 22 months, end of 2011, 22 months from now. Unemployment rate will go from 11 back to 9.5. Unemployment rate, pre-recession unemployment rate, a little bit less than 5%. Guess when it's going to get back to 5%? Projections are 5 years. Talk about the impact. What does Mecklenburg County do? Mecklenburg County provides health and human services for this community. We are a subdivision of the state of North Carolina. We do things like public health. We do things like area mental health, substance abuse, developmental disabilities, name it. Department of Social Services. When you have, and so therefore you've got a high underemployment rate. There are people who are taking jobs now, if they can find one, at levels less than what they would have otherwise accepted maybe even a year ago. High skill, highly educated. They're pushing down people who are lower skill and lower educated. It's not to say you don't have education, but you might have an associate degree or just a bachelor's degree, where people who are underemployed might have a master's degree or higher coming down. Guess who's getting pushed out for longer periods of time? The unskilled and the uneducated. Guess where they're going to end up? They're going to end up our doorsteps at DSS or area mental health, okay? Or other places that we provide services, if you want to call it a service, called courthouse and jails. That's what I'm up against in terms of how to plan. That's what the Board of County Commissioners is up against in terms of how we've got to plan going forward. And we're not going to work our way out of this in the short term. We're 4 to 5 years away. The Board of County Commissioners just finished its strategic planning conference, and they set some priorities for services. And the top priorities, Mecklenburg County, pretty consistent, again this year as they were last year with the prioritization. Health services, education, criminal justice, which includes the sheriff and its operations. And the top 3, education, what they call educational support. Educational support is very important to the board because they want to do all that they can to deal with high school dropouts. Y'all help to some degree in that, or high degree in that, and the services that you provide. Library services, we have 7 levels, as you know, of priorities. Library services rank in the 4th priority level. Programs like Park and Rec, one aspect of Park and Rec ranks in the 4th area. Most of the other services are in the 5th and the 6th area. Why do I bring that up? Because all of you, as librarians and in this system, provide a service that are very popular to the public, but they're not mandated services. Libraries provide a service that are very popular to the public, but they're not mandated services. And so somehow, some way, I have got to find a way to balance these competing demands and expectations that citizens have. We're doing all of this in an environment where there is not an appetite to raise taxes. See, even in the good times when we were having, when we could rely upon normal growth in our tax base and we had $25 or $30 million starting out the gate, in those good times, we were also raising taxes. And there's not an environment to raise taxes. I guess the question becomes one of, should there be? Should there be a desire to raise taxes in this environment when we've got the high unemployment rate? When you are seeing a decrease, and I am seeing a decrease in the value of my home. The real estate is not selling, and so it's really a buyer's market more than a seller's market. Should taxes be raised? There are some that will argue that this is the right thing to do. There are yet others who will argue it's not the right time to do it. We didn't raise taxes last year, didn't put it on the table, and we didn't raise taxes the year before. And we use as our reason for not raising taxes, as I've already said, because of the economic conditions.